Hello, welcome to Discussing Fitchburg Now. I am your host, Sam Squalia. This week's show, we are doing a cannabis roundtable discussion with experts from the cannabis field all across Massachusetts. And so we're gonna break this show up into two segments, and we're gonna be talking about a whole variety of topics for the entire show. So make sure that you watch the whole time so that you learn everything there is to know. This is a great graphic because it tells us exactly who is gonna be on the show, all right? So I have my first panel on right here, and I'm going to, hi everyone. So I'll just start with you, Will, and we'll have everybody introduce themselves going on the line.
Sam, thanks so much for having all of us. My name is Will Luzier. I'm an attorney working with folks through the cannabis licensing process. I was the campaign manager for the Yes on 4 initiative that legalized marijuana here in Massachusetts. So I like to say, if it wasn't for me, none of this would have happened.
And ain't that the truth, because Will helped us since the beginning. We're STEM in Haverhill. My name is Caroline Pineau. I am owner and co-founder with my husband, Adam Pineau. We love what we do, and we're a retail-only shop, and come give us a visit anytime.
Hi, I'm Matt. I'm the assistant manager over at OMG Cannabis on Lunenburg Street in Fitchburg. We've just been open for the last couple of months, so looking forward to see you in the store.
Hi, I'm the oddball of the bunch. My name is Heather Marie Brown. I'm actually from New Hampshire. I'm an advocate and an activist for the state. I also am the vice chairman of the New Hampshire Therapeutic Cannabis Medical Oversight Board.
The oddball, because New Hampshire hasn't actually legalized adult use cannabis yet. Is that correct?
That's correct. We are still an Isle of Prohibition up in the great live free or die state.
Live free or die, but you can't buy cannabis.
Exactly, exactly. So we fortunately do have medicinal, and we are working on legalization, so fingers crossed. It's just, we know it's coming. We just have to figure out when. So,
most legalization across the United States has been done through a ballot initiative, right? Has there been any actual legislature that's legalized cannabis?
New York, New Jersey, there are several states that have legalized it through the legislative process, but the first half dozen or maybe 8 states that legalized were done it through the initiative process, and we're lucky to have that process available here in Massachusetts because the legislature was somewhat reticent to legalize, and so we let the people vote on it, and thank the 420 gods, they came through. 1.8 million people voted for the initiative.
Yeah, and it was like 52%?
54-46 was
54% is fairly overwhelming majority when it comes to elections. Yep. And so New Hampshire, we might, I don't know where we are with New Hampshire.
Unfortunately, we have to go through the legislative process. To do it any other way would basically take we have to rewrite some part of our New Hampshire Constitution in order to do that. We have attempted it, but it's failed several times. I kind of wish we could get it through because right now approximately 74% of New Hampshire citizens are in favor of a legalized system of cannabis in the state. So, you know, unfortunately with the individuals we have in our legislature currently, they're set in their ways and they're not as progressive as what they should be and what we need our legislators to be. So.
Does Vermont adult use and medical?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you would think New Hampshire is kind of an outlier now because we have Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Vermont, Maine.
Oh yeah.
New York.
So I think our governor enjoys being the oddball of the bunch. Me, not so much. I think that considering the tourism that we have within New Hampshire, I think that this would be another opportunity to persuade people to come to the state. I think it'd be excellent for our citizens. I think it would be an excellent way to raise extra funds to support public education and other programs within the state. It could also be used to take some of the property tax burden off of the citizens as well. We have some pretty awful property taxes up there, and but again, we have to have individuals in office that want to maintain an open mind and that want to move forward and set a system. And right now, everybody's so afraid. They're like, let's see what the federal government does. Let's see what the federal government does. Well, I'm kind of sick and tired of waiting for that. New Hampshire brags all the time about live free or die and first in the nation, and at this rate, we are definitely not going to be the first, the second, or even the 12th at this point. So
yeah, but we'll probably anticipate it sometime in the future. This is a good segue into talking about Massachusetts. How there are some cities and towns that voted against. When they voted for the ballot initiative, they voted against it. So they don't allow it in their own communities, right? And then there are some communities that have adopted it, I think, very well, like the city of Fitchburg, for example, I think has adopted, cannabis and with open arms. So, could we talk a little bit about the differences maybe between some cities and towns that maybe haven't adopted it, or maybe some that are affected differently?
From my experience, and I'm one of the state's 120 economic empowerment applicants and now licensees. And only a small percentage of economic empowerment applicants have actually been able to get off the ground and running because it is such an arduous process to become licensed.
Like 0.5%?
There's a lot of people that are now starting to get open, and a lot of the social equity cohorts are now starting to have major movement, and that's something that we try to align with those brands as much as possible because it's a really important component of the industry. But to answer your question about cities and towns being favorable to cannabis or not favorable to cannabis, it's interesting. We are in the Merrimack Valley, Haverhill, and Haverhill was a strongly yes community. Therefore, had to, in order to not allow cannabis, would have to put it back to a special election, which we were able to successfully get enough support to indicate to the council that they should indeed enact some rules and regulations of legal cannabis and ultimately adopt it and allow for zoning per the legislation. But that being said, that was not done easily. That process was met with great resistance and is still to this day met with resistance. But what I am proud to say is that there's been no impact, no increase in youth use, no increase in crime. If anything, we've been such a positive staple in downtown Haverhill, and we partner with all the local businesses. We do collaborations, and I think it's been a really positive thing in the community. So it's been interesting to see that even though Haverhill was a yes community, that not necessarily the local municipality is on board with that process.
And there are also some communities that are considering, they were originally a no community and therefore banned retail cannabis in their locations. And there are some communities now that see 5 years into the process that communities are generating significant revenue from cannabis sales and are looking to lift those bans.
What do you know of any communities that are currently doing that? I haven't heard that yet.
My understanding is there's currently a proposal in Newburyport to lift the ban, for instance, and I believe West Springfield was also another community that was going to lift was considering lifting their ban.
Oh yeah, pretty soon.
Also, I'd like to take this moment to talk about, there's some communities that, while they don't have an outright ban, they made the zoning laws so difficult that it's almost impossible to find a spot inside the community to have recreational cannabis. So let's look at Leominster for
yeah, Leominster has the outskirts of the city and the industrial park.
Yeah, pretty much. And even then, they've only offered a handful of offer letters, or host agreements rather. Most of those have gone to some sort of production or manufacturing. And then there's one for medical marijuana, but nothing for recreational cannabis. It's just, there's nothing. They're just losing all that tax revenue to surrounding areas like Fitchburg.
Yep. Well, Fitchburg,
like,
when Fitchburg first, enacted our zoning regulations in 2018, the first proposal was the outskirts of the city, near the highway, in the industrial zone, and councilors rightly, I believe, zoned it, pretty much allowed in any zone except the medical. Some caveat in Fitchburg. So a retail cannabis location is located everywhere that a alcohol package store can be located.
Which is how it should be.
Which was the spirit of the law, right? The ballot initiative was to treat cannabis as we treat alcohol. And one thing with alcohol licenses, the alcohol package store licenses have a cap per population per the state. And Fitchburg has, 25-ish. And so the original was, if you voted in favor, you needed to allow 20% of the 20% licenses of your alcohol package store licenses, which frankly I advocated for 100% as the city councilor. It should be equal. But we ended up in Fitchburg with doubling that minimum 20% to 40%, which gave us a cap of 8 retail adult use cannabis retail stores, which were quickly taken. Within 2 years maybe of 2018, we had all those licenses taken.
And that's great. Fitchburg, Holyoke, Worcester, all of those communities have sort of, Pittsfield have adopted cannabis with open arms, and let's talk, Matt, it's Matt, right?
Yeah.
Matt mentioned host community agreements. There is a push in the Cannabis Control Commission right now because of legislation that was passed last year entitled a bill to promote equity in cannabis. And the Cannabis Control Commission is under a mandate to deal with municipal equity, host community agreements, and social consumption. And they have deadlines for all of those things. So they have 3 working groups that have been formed to reform the regulations around those things, and they're asking for public input. So if you go to the Cannabis Control Commission website, if you're interested in any of those things, you can weigh in, and they are in the process of changing those regulations so that they will promote more equity in cannabis.
They also created a social equity trust fund so that we can start to, because one of the problems with our social equity and economic empowerment applicants is they don't have access to capital like your standard white male business owner. Right?
Yeah, the access to capital is a real barrier to entry, and that's an issue that hasn't gone away, and if anything has gotten more difficult, especially as the market is kind of doing a bit of a tailspin right now. It's overly saturated. There's a lot of product out there and not as many places to buy the product and retail the product. There's a lot of retailers, and I think we're all trying to navigate the business aspect of it, but I think it's so important, despite all of that navigation, to always be focusing on the social equity component of this industry and giving the education needed around that for policymaking is important, and the work is not done. So advocating for these things in the work that we do is ever more important.
And that's, right now we currently have a couple of legalization bills. One is just to straight out legalize it with no sales system, no rules or regulations. Just, you're an adult, you can use cannabis, you can have as much as you want. And then the other bill is a much more comprehensive bill that lays out a sales system and a structure and the tax structure, the whole 9 yards. The unfortunate thing about that bill is that the social equity piece was torn out of it. So one of the things that I've been trying to work on as this passes through the House and the Senate is actually getting I think caps are extremely important, and I think that because the social equity piece has been torn out of the bill and it's not going to originally go into effect, I think we need to create an opportunity for the small business owners to actually be able to get into the market. And the best way to do that is by creating licensing caps so that these huge companies can't come into the state, swoop up all of the licenses, and push all of the little people underneath the rug and sweep them out of the way. So it will help with that piece by allowing smaller businesses, the mom and the pop stores, to be able to get into the market. So, you know, people have different opinions about caps, licensing caps, but I think that when used appropriately, they really can have a positive impact and create a system where everybody can flourish within the industry instead of just one or two huge companies.
Like, for example, in Massachusetts, with the new bill that was passed, there's a social consumption, regulatory revision. And for the social consumption, establishment, you're required to have a social equity, over 50% share social equity or economic empowerment. And that's for the first 3 years since the first one opens?
Yes.
Okay. And so,
that's a really wonderful opportunity and exclusivity period that, Will can address in more granular detail. But I think as a retailer and an economic empowerment applicant, and as someone who cares so deeply about this issue, the other really important thing to note about the new legislation is that cities and towns that host an economic empowerment or a social equity applicant get an additional 1% of the gross revenue from the state system.
Ooh.
Yes, and Will can talk about that more too.
So there's a benefit to municipalities.
There's benefit to municipalities, which was lacking before.
So I think it's important for folks out in TV land to understand, we often talk in cannabis language, and folks don't understand what, for instance, a social equity or an economic empowerment designee is. So economic empowerment is essentially someone who has lived in an area that has been adversely affected by the drug war, and that's usually designated by the number of arrests and the amount of unemployment. And there are some other criteria that you need to meet in order to be a social economic empowerment designee. Social equity designees are either people who have a cannabis conviction on their record, a person who has a child or a parent who has a cannabis conviction on their record. And so that complies with the part of the initiative that says that, or that said that the state has to take into account people who have been adversely affected by the drug war.
Yeah. And with this, and like you said, Heather, with the caps, the social consumption, establishment, which is essentially like a bar that you can use cannabis. Either you could drink it or eat it, vape it in a candy. I guess we're still waiting on the exact regulations of what that's going to look like by the Cannabis Control Commission, but that it'll be exclusive to social equity and economic empowerment applicants, of which Fitchburg is an area of disproportionate impact. As designated, yes. the people from Fitchburg, would benefit from this.
And the other exclusivity period is for delivery operators and delivery couriers.
Oh,
so
yeah.
That's also reserved for 3 years for economic empowerment and social equity designees.
Devin Alexander was on our show, Roundtable, last year. He just started his Rolling Relief.
Rolling Relief is now rolling and relieving.
Yeah, and so for a cannabis delivery, you can have cannabis delivered to your house even if you're in a city that doesn't allow retail. Is that correct?
Yes.
Seems beneficial. So you're not getting the tax benefit as that community, but your people still get that opportunity to utilize their...
Right, the taxes go back to wherever the delivery operator is located.
Yeah. So how has the Fitchburg OMG cannabis store, that just opened
I opened the
in
Monday before
February?
Christmas.
Oh,
Yeah,
December.
we opened in just around Christmas, and then we had our grand opening on February 20-something. Can't remember, but it's been going really good there. Great feedback from the community. It's a lot of people from Fitchburg. We're slowly reaching out to the areas around Leominster, Lunenburg, places that just don't have dispensaries. And we're excited to be here and happy that tomorrow's 420. Biggest day of the year for us.
And one of the things that Matt mentioned that I think is important to understand is it's advertising cannabis is very restrictive in Massachusetts. I was at a book reading last night, and one of the authors was a lawyer, and he was talking about the restrictions on advertising. And he said, for instance, there's no advertising of prescription drugs in Europe on TV or radio. And of course, we see that advertising all the time.
Commercial.
And now we have another new industry, that being the gaming industry in Massachusetts. And I can't watch TV for any more than 3 minutes without seeing an advertisement for them.
Try scrolling Twitter.
Yeah.
It's just all gaming.
And so I think one of the things that the Cannabis Control Commission needs to do is look at advertising regulations so that folks can have the same opportunity to let their customers know what they have and what might be available as every other industry in Massachusetts.
Exactly.
The liquor store has every single kind of liquor all pasted all over, but cannabis can't advertise their products.
Yeah, why are we different than any other, vice? Everyone's over 21. Everyone knows that these substances, whether it be alcohol, tobacco, cannabis, gambling, you got to be 21 to, actively do those things. So why can't we advertise like these other things can? It's just unfair.
It's not equitable yet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We keep trying, though. Even I was 9 months pregnant when we opened STEM. And I thought we would open sooner, and it just ended up that my stomach kept growing and growing, and finally our day came. But I tried to even push for the right to be able to bring my infant into the facility with me.
Oh, because you can't bring children under 21.
No. So I actually pushed back, and I file when I believe some change needs to be made, I often, push the thinking on things. And oftentimes I'm told, actually, you can do that, which is helpful. It's a new industry. So I think trying to approach it with a collaborative lens, I think there's a way that we can work collaboratively with the State Cannabis Control Commission to continue to develop. It's a green industry, and now we're a few years in, we know what works and what doesn't, and now we get to really fine-tune it and craft it. But that's a collaborative process.
And the Cannabis Control Commission that started in 2017, we have an entirely new Cannabis Control Commission. All the commissioners have been replaced with new commissioners, and their office is locating right in Worcester. So you don't have to go to Boston to go see in person the Cannabis Control Commission meetings.
That's true, although since the pandemic, they haven't had an in-person meeting.
Oh, well.
They all meet together, but the public is. It used to be that they had, the public was invited to their meetings, but they haven't gotten back to that point yet since the pandemic started.
Well, May 11th, right, is the end date for the pandemic in Massachusetts. So.
Keep your fingers crossed.
Yeah, we extended remote meeting options for another year. But you can see the Cannabis Control Commission meetings remotely.
Yes.
And participate remotely.
No.
Submit comments?
You can always write to the Cannabis Control Commission. I've done it many times, but they're not live for an audience.
Right.
They were a few times. They were in the beginning, though,
Yes.
right? And they
Yes.
had
There were
a-
public comment. There
Yeah.
used to
They
be
often
public
few-
seek public comment on specific topics, and will ask for like pre-testimony to be submitted, and then you can get involved that way on certain topics.
Right, like the municipal equity and social consumption and host community agreements that they're seeking input on now. So the process is they will fashion draft regulations, and then they'll have public hearings to get feedback on those draft regulations before they're finalized.
So the public hearing is your opportunity to.
Well,
Attend.
you can attend, but you can also submit written comment now on those 3 subjects.
If you go to the Cannabis Control Commission website,
That's right.
which is actually, they've revamped it, and it's a very well done website full of resources.
There are definitely a lot of resources on there. Will often sends me there when I have a question about the regulations, but you know, I think the consensus is, at least from like the partners that we work with, is that there's just a really concerted and positive effort to continue to improve this industry together. And I think that's really exciting, to be a part of an industry where you can like be a part of the fabric making of its very essence. So that's been, I think, the most fun part of this industry from a retailer perspective.
From the first store that opened in Fitchburg, the Local Roots, to our 6th store that opened, OMG Cannabis, I have seen a wide range of new products available, like things you never would think, like soda.
Oh,
or,
yeah.
you know, whatever. Can you talk about some of the new popular products at STEM or OMG?
So one of our most popular products, like we can't even keep them in stock right now. They're these little boba packets. They're coming like literally about this big. It's got only 5 milligrams of THC in it. You just pour it into whatever drink you wanna.
Oh, it's like the chewy boba tea
Yeah,
thing?
yeah, the little balls at the bottom that pop. They're full with a live rosin, so it's a nice full spectrum little hit of cannabis. Those just fly off our shelves. We have people that come in every couple of days. Hey, you got any of those bobas? And when we do, they try to buy as many as they can. Lots of infused pre-rolls go through us. And if you don't know what an infused pre-roll is, it's a joint that's already been rolled up for you, but it's also got some sort of concentrate, which is basically they take weed, take all the THC out of it, and put it into a joint additionally. So
It's like a super pre-roll.
Exactly. So those and the bobas are pretty much our fastest moving things. Like you said, the sodas, those have gotten really popular. We started carrying those a couple weeks back, and those are just flying out the doors. There's so many little niche products that you never even think of until you walk into a dispensary that sells it, and you're like, wait, that's a thing?
That's a thing?
I never thought of like cannabis ice cream until I was on an actual different dispensary's website, and I was like, they have ice cream. I could have ice cream and then put a soda in it, have a float. Like, but yeah, there's a bunch of little things that you'd never even think of that just pop up, and then people fall in love with, and you never even think of it.
I think what moves the most for us is our the products that we curate in-house as a retailer. We repackage flower and do what we call Merrimack Valley pre-rolls. We take a lot of pride in them. That room has been run by one of our employees who's been with us since the very beginning, Maritza, and we call her Rola, and she's got that room on lock, and we are producing way more than we ever thought because the demand is so high. We focus on the quality of the roll, the grind. We Dutch crown the top of each joint.
What's that mean?
It's the way, instead of a twist top, you like hand peg, takes a little longer, but it makes the lighting process hopefully a little bit more even. So we've just been focusing on the details, and everything that we do in house you can only get at STEM because we can't sell to other retailers, which is really exciting for us. So we've been leaning into that, and the people have been pleased. So yeah, I think just highlighting like our capabilities as a standalone store, and that we can still have a bold presence despite, you know, a lot of the competition and the market pressure of people that own multiple entities. There is a way to support independent retailers, and you just got to shop and love their stuff.
They have a niche
Yes.
product.
Yes.
It's incredible to finally, I mean, most of us sitting here already knew this, but cannabis is such a universal plant. It can be used for literally anything. There isn't a single part of the plant that can't be used. So, you know, even though we're talking in relevance to the THC and the cannabinoids and that portion of it, and all of the different products that are coming out from that, can you imagine what the industry is going to become when individuals start jumping on the other aspects of the plant as well?
There's so many things that we don't even know
Right,
that we can make.
building materials,
Fabrics.
papers, inks, you name it, it can be made from it.
So many of those parts of the plant, just because of the way the
Mm-hmm.
regulations are written right now, in production, they just get ground up,
Yep.
mixed in with sand, and thrown in the dumpster. Like the stalks that the plant grows
Yep.
on, the little nugs and all the leaves, those just get thrown away. When in reality, you could actually turn them into fibers, turn it into clothing at a way more environmental
Way more
impact.
environmentally friendly than cotton.
Yeah,
or
cotton, polyester.
the plastic that we all wear.
Like, and it would just honestly be a byproduct of literally just growing weed. Like it's,
This table's a little bit too high to do this, but the shoes that I'm wearing right now are made out of hemp.
Oh, cool. Yep, there's an endless amount of uses.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you know, like what you were saying, as far as your disposal methods, what you're required under law to do, can you imagine how much money you would save as a company if instead of having to go through all of those extra steps, you could, even if you just wanted to, just keep it and compost it and reuse it back in your soil and back in your grow and save money in that aspect too, because you know, a lot of things that people talk about is the cost associated with cannabis. Well, I don't think most people understand that cost is usually so great because of the state regulations that are put in place on these businesses. So when the state is costing the business more money and forcing them to go out and follow all these rules and regulations.
That reflects on your cost of your product.
Right, exactly. And a lot of it is redundancy in the system and really is unnecessary. I mean, obviously we want to be safe and we want, you know, businesses to be performing legally and in an appropriate manner, but the redundancy created within the system is unnecessary. It truly is. So.
All right, well, this is, we got to come to the end of our segment. Is there anything else you want to add before we take a short break? Anybody?
Come visit us in Haverhill, STEM.
we'll see
Happy
you tomorrow at
420.
OMG Cannabis.
And get involved. Actually,
absolutely.
go do something, even if it's as little as picking up the phone. Contact your legislators. Become part of the solution and
Make
don't
a
just
comment
sit
on the
around.
Cannabis Control Commission website.
Exactly.
Also,
All right.
pound your congressperson. Let's get this federally legalized and get straight rules across the board.
All right, great.
Thank you.
Thanks,
So,
Sam.
thanks, guys.
Thank
we
you.
are going to take a short break, and then we'll be back with panel 2, where we'll have more discussion.
See Click Fix, Fitchburg's one-stop shop for helping resolve issues in our community. You can report anything from a missed trash pickup to potholes on city roads, illegal dumping to broken traffic lights. To report an issue, all you need to do is click New Request. Type in the location, select a category, and send in a photo if you have one. Your request goes straight to city officials so they can help resolve the issue. Making an account is free and easy. All you need is an email. Download the See Click Fix app today to get your matters resolved.
I am George Meridanian, director of the Wachusett Chess Club at Fitchburg State University. Welcome to another edition of Chess Chat.
A special thing in store. The light bulb inside my head says, get out and play. 'Cause you never feel this way. It's my lucky day. It's my lucky day. It's my lucky day. Never feel this way. It's my lucky day. It's my lucky day. It's my lucky day. My lucky day. Don't need a pot of gold, a rabbit's foot or to be told. It's my lucky day. It's my lucky day.
I remember when.
Fitchburg was the smallest town in the area, but by 1835, it had grown to be the largest town. By 1840 and 50, most Fitchburg residents had become abolitionists. Another early industry in Fitchburg that still continues today is scythe making. Women used to have to spin yarn and weave cloth themselves, but now it was being made in factories, cutting down and exporting its wood to build cities up and down the East Coast, and of course, for making paper. Starting in the 1800s, the population becomes much more diverse. Fitchburg Machine Works expanded widely.
After World War II, Main Street was lively.
Forces the turnover, shoots, scores!
Oh, you're gonna use a fork? I was just gonna pick it up and eat it.
Well,
Yeah,
some
that's...
of us are more classy than others, Alex.
Oh, well, you know.
A lot of hope to see that, the next generation, before they even leave high school, that they're so invested in the community.
And a special thank you to FATV, who made this broadcast possible.
Welcome back to Discussing Fitchburg Now on Fitchburg Access Television. I am your host, Sam Squalia. We are in our second half of the show of our Cannabis Roundtable discussion. And so I'll just, we'll have you guys introduce yourself, starting with you, Lisa, and we'll go down the table.
Hi, I'm Lisa Napert. I'm the 420 Holistic Nurse.
My name is Laura Beohner. I am the CEO and co-founder of the Healing Rose Company out of Newburyport, Massachusetts.
My name is Laura Huard. I'm the owner of a CBD skincare company called Hole in the Wall Care.
My name is Heather Fenwick, and I have a company called Heavenly Highs by Heather and a blog, Life with Dylan.
I'm Sera Capel. I'm the Weed Fairy, founder of theweedfairy.com.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for coming on. So, in our last panel discussion, we had a lot of discussion about regulation and things, and we started to get into specific products. And so, we have a couple CBD discussions, and we have the nurse. So let's talk a little bit about the differences with, when people think about cannabis and smoking cannabis, they think about THC. But we are, learning about so many other cannabinoid, chemical compounds that are within the plant that can be used to heal different things within the body, skin or otherwise. We have CBD, THC, CBN, et cetera, et cetera. Can we talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So I think traditionally, everyone is, like you said, always traditionally associated THC with cannabis. But CBD always has been there. It was bred out for But now that CBD is in such an abundance, there are other cannabinoids like CBG that can actually be grown with hemp. There are hemp strains that are literally almost all CBG growing. THCV, CBDV. So CBN and those type of things are just a small fraction of the cannabinoids. There are over 100 that can be found naturally in the plant. And then there's also things like terpenes that are really customizing the experience and creating different effects. So as the market goes along and those cannabinoids become more abundant and more available in different products, it's really changing the customer experience and also what we're able to treat and help out with for people.
Well, I'll add to that. I'd like to say that, when we're talking about the entourage effect, all of these cannabinoids and terpenes do a lot of specific things for our bodies. And as we remove the stigma and we educate about what these things can do for our bodies, and it doesn't even have an age to it, if you will. We all sometimes have things to deal with, and this plant can bring a lot of benefits in a lot of different ways. And smoking is not the only way to take this in. We have so many different forms, and what I've referred to as stacking medication, and we can stacking. That's right, stacking the medication, if you will. And we'll refer to a pharmacological medication. Sometimes they use 2 or 3 different medications to treat the same disease process, right? You can do the same thing with cannabis. You can ingest it by an edible. You can smoke it in a vape or in flower. You can apply a topical or even consume a tincture. And that's
like
what
oil.
you call, under your tongue, that's right. And so that's what you call stacking your medication. So when we talk about cannabinoids and terpenes and how they affect the body, there's so many different ways for so many different people, and how it's individualized like a thumbprint. Everybody's different. So, we try to figure that out along the way.
But there's, we're finding as the industry has been experimenting with, cannabis products and people are utilizing them, we're finding that certain compounds help with certain ailments. Like, for example, a lot of the people that I talk to that use cannabis are using it to help them sleep at night. And I heard that there's CBD for the body and CBN for, I forget what the joke is, like N for snoozing or N for night. I forget what it is, but I hear CBN, that's what you want to go to sleep.
That's right. CBN is generally used to facilitate better sleep patterns, because sometimes our circadian rhythms are off, or our electrolytes or our balances, or some of these.
We're looking at our phones.
Something, right? And so sometimes using some CBN in combinations with other cannabinoids can help with sleep. There are other things like CBG, CBM, CBL. There's so many.
There's a lot of acronyms.
Yes,
Over 100.
Yes, and each one of them do their own thing.
And each one of them has an acidic precursor that also does its own thing. So CBDA, CBGA, THCA, they all actually have their own unique properties as well, and that's like the raw hemp or cannabis plant before it's heated. So all of those have benefits as well.
They're affectionately referred to as A's and V's, correct? A's and V's.
A's and V's, those are the things that you add on to the first 3 letters?
Before combustion, after combustion, so it's acidics and right. So
what
again,
does the V stand for?
The V is
variants.
Variants. Thank you. So again, different parts of the plant, and it's not just the buds with the trichomes. We also use the whole plant, from the leaf to the roots and everything. That's right.
Yeah, we started to touch on that earlier, and so now we can get a little bit more in depth. And so if you don't need to learn all of this yourself.
No.
You can go to a cannabis retailer or a cannabis expert in healthcare or other product retailers that will kind of guide you as to what combination might be suited for you, especially if you are a medical patient.
Correct. So I think that in the state of Massachusetts, we have, you know, medical and we have recreational. And, you know, when this first started, you know, the direction for our medical patients through dispensaries wasn't all that great at the time. And I can say that because I went through that firsthand as a patient. And I'll say that, you know, it's come a long way. We're still not done fixing and getting the guidance we need. But when we look at our bud tenders now, they're armed a little bit better with some information. But they don't go through the training to get the medical experience. That might be more beneficial. We can outsource to Healing Rose and say, you know, the holistic nurse who's got the medical background, who's a licensed ACNA nurse in the state of Massachusetts can say, let's look at what's going on with you and let's see what we can do to help you. And let's see who we can outsource you to locally. And let's say, Laura, she's in that person's neighborhood and we've got that in a list of people. And there you go. So care planning's a thing. Yeah.
And, you know, when we talk about different substances, medicines, prescription medicines, or alcohol, for example, these can be very dangerous in excess amounts or even in a very small amount to different people. Now, can we talk a little bit about the safety of cannabis, the different compounds of cannabis, the safety of cannabis in general?
Well, that's the thing. And it goes hand in hand with ending the stigma. One of the things that, you know, we kind of joke about in cannabis is like, you can't die.
In cannabis.
You can't
There's
die
never
from
been an
cannabis
overdose.
alone. Ever. There has been a death from cannabis, but it was from inhalation of the trichomes, not cannabis
An accident,
ingestion.
some sort of freak
Overdose.
accident.
Overdose.
Right, whereas 88,000 plus people die a year from alcohol poisoning.
Alcohol poisoning, there
and
are
that's
drugs
not-
that you can die from stopping using,
Yeah.
which is, you know, just as dangerous. Tylenol.
Tylenol.
You know, one of the most common
They
drugs
say if
in your drug
Tylenol was
cabinet.
introduced today, it would not be an over-the-counter medicine.
No.
It would not.
It's that dangerous.
Yes.
Absolutely. So, and that's like, goes back to what Lisa was saying with the stacking the medication, learning more about the different compounds. So you know, just get educated, you know. And I think that's one of the things that I've learned a lot from going to different events, you know, in Massachusetts. It used to be very underground and now it's becoming more, you know,
above ground.
Yeah, more mainstream. There are events going on this weekend at 2 separate fairgrounds. You know, there's an event that goes on at the DCU Center at Worcester, in Worcester.
It's on television.
Yeah, you
The
know.
stigma is breaking, which was
Starting.
the purpose of the ballot initiative to treat cannabis in the same manner as alcohol, as is equal. And
Well,
we're not there.
You
but
know,
we're
and
getting there.
I don't know if I agree with that. I don't know if I agree with
do
that
and I
because
don't.
it's not as damaging as
not.
alcohol.
You know, I mean,
It's
it's
not.
not even just alcohol poisoning, but somebody gets behind the wheel of a car and they're drunk. They get in an
Absolutely.
accident. It's not just them they're affecting another family. You know, they're affecting their whole family, and it's deadly. And you know, really, and we all joke about it. Stoners just sit there and you know,
You
sit
put
there and
5
eat
drunk guys in a
food.
room, they're gonna
They're
fight.
gonna fight, you know.
Put 5 stoners in a room, they're gonna be
"Hey,
friends
guys."
before they leave.
Yeah, you know, they're gonna sit there and
they're gonna be friends.
you know, have some snacks and you know, talk.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I would like to believe that hopefully someday we might see a correlation more between cannabis and medication, although even that is not quite.
Well, cannabis is considered
But it is
medicine
considered
in
medicine.
Massachusetts, and you
Alcohol
can
is not
get
considered
prescribed.
medicine.
That's right. There is no medical, except unless you are withdrawing from alcohol.
Yeah.
Then alcohol.
Yeah.
That's the only time alcohol
Yeah.
would be technically a medication.
But my grandson is actually on cannabis through
a
prescription. He's on, like she said, stacking. He's
like
on
an
3
epilepsy
different
situation?
He has
Yeah.
3 different medications for seizures. He has at least 2 different kinds of seizures, and he has them daily.
Whereas a lot of the prescription medications have harmful side effects.
Yes.
And they're
Absolutely.
very expensive.
Yes. Yes. He had to have over 100 drop seizures in less than a month to get approved for the cannabis. Wow. He lost his ability to walk and stand on his own. He acquired cerebral palsy last May and June because his seizures, he stops breathing and turns blue. So he had lost so much oxygen, he acquired cerebral palsy, and he's still trying to walk on his own again. And he's still not there, but he doesn't give up.
Yeah. He's an amazing little boy. He has, I don't know, I'm not sure how many other diagnoses either. That is not the only thing.
No, he's got quite a few.
You know, but that was a remarkably noticeable improvement in his seizures when he started the prescription cannabis.
As a medical treatment, it's available to all ages.
Yet it's a Schedule 1.
Is that not right?
No, it's not. You have to jump. You have to fight tooth and nail for this more than any other medicine.
It's not easily available.
It's not. And his first neurologist, actually, we agreed to part ways because she was so against it. He was on CBD before he had seizures for his developmental. And when he started seizures, she made me stop it. And then we fought for about a year, and then last May he had that bout. And
So in the state of Massachusetts, the state does not like to allow treatment with cannabis involving THC and probably CBD as well in anybody under the age of 18. So they're more willing to prescribe other medications like Epidiolex and some other pharmaceuticals that are man-made to mimic the cannabis plant to try to fill the receptors in what's called your endocannabinoid system. And generally in our bodies, a lot of us have the ability to generate some of the chemicals in our bodies to fill those endocannabinoids of receptors. And some of us don't. And some of us need to balance that, and that's through the plant. If we can't do that with our own bodies naturally, we do that with cannabis, and that's a naturally grown plant here on this planet. And it's documented for 4,000 years of this plant being used
as
for
a medical use.
Yes. Yes.
Do I agree that it should be controlled by the government? Absolutely not. No. This is a holistic herbal treatment that is generally trying to be controlled by the government so that they can regulate it, tax it, and benefit on it. Yep. Did you know that the government owns 2 patents on that plant that they don't want to release from the Schedule 1?
Are those the medicines, the 2 prescription medicines that are derived from cannabis?
So Epidiolex is one of those pharmaceuticals man-made to copy cannabis.
Marinol also.
Marinol is another one that is used for cancer patients. I know that because I was a cancer patient, and it was like fighting to get that much. And knowing I was a cannabis user, the dosage didn't match.
No, it does not. It does not.
Oh, yeah. So if you are a cannabis user, you need more.
That's
right. Because your tolerance is higher.
And it's also synthetic. It's not
It
natural.
doesn't behave the same.
It doesn't. It does not.
And I'm sure it's way more expensive and possibly more dangerous.
Oh, yes.
It is.
Absolutely.
It is. And physicians aren't willing to write it because of the stigmatization in this state with our medical professionals. Am I a medical professional? Absolutely. I am a licensed medical professional in the state of Massachusetts. I don't agree with all of these boundaries and guidelines that have been put in place for this particular treatment. This used to be in our pharmacological books, and the last printed was 1936. I have an 1892 book that shows the same treatments with this plant and benefits in many different areas for recovery and ease of symptoms.
Well, after the prohibition of alcohol, the United States Prohibition Department had to have something to do.
I don't think they need to have their
used to
hands
be
on this.
Oh.
They shouldn't have their hands on this.
Yeah, we're slowly prying their hands away from this as a medicine and just as an adult use recreational option.
So we need to advocate and still keep pushing for the fact that despite the government having 2 patents on this plant, it's a naturally grown plant, it's herbal medicine, and we should still fight to keep it that way and to keep our choices.
Yes.
And not be forced into their choices that we may not agree with, that may not even work for our bodies. We have those decisions, just like patient rights, we have human rights, and that is one of them.
Yes, absolutely.
Very well said.
Thank you.
That was beautiful.
And I mean, if you wanted to, you could even go back to the Bible, because he said to use all the green plants.
Yes.
Oh yeah, that's a thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And cannabis
I
is
guess.
still a Schedule
Oh, it is.
1
Trust me.
drug federally.
Trust
Right.
me.
Which
So
is
it's
just so
still
insane.
cannabis is still federally illegal.
Absolutely.
So you can't take your medicine outside of the state of Massachusetts.
Right.
Correct.
Technically, right?
Right.
Correct.
Right.
Legally.
Legally.
Unless you're in another state that allows it, but you can't bring yours, you have to get it there.
Yeah.
Right. Yes.
Right.
Partner
Absolutely.
states, like state of Massachusetts is partnered up with at least one state, and that'd be
Maine?
Maine.
Maine?
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly.
Yes.
So
I mean,
you
you
can
can't
however-
transport it.
But in Maine, you can't. They will accept your Massachusetts medical card.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes. However, in Maine, to get back to Massachusetts, you have to drive through New Hampshire.
Yeah. They don't touch. So.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So you go through a state where adult use cannabis is still not legalized.
Correct.
Correct.
But medical use is, but there's no reciprocal
Right.
medical
Exactly.
allowance.
Exactly.
Right.
We're still in a complicated time in
Very
2023
complicated.
after recreational was passed in 2016.
Yeah.
So it's still a complicated system.
Absolutely. And I may be wrong, but I believe Massachusetts is the only state in New England that has a gifting law.
Oh yes, because you can legally gift cannabis to
Another
anyone
person.
Under an ounce.
under an ounce.
And people over 21.
And people over 21.
Anyone over 21.
Thank you. Thank you
Under
for
an
that
ounce,
clarification.
under an ounce of flour,
Yes.
or 5 grams of concentrate.
Oh, okay.
However, there's no regulations for edibles
There's
or
no
other
Infused
variations.
You can gift edibles, you mean?
I don't know. There's no regulations.
So, you know.
Okay.
No law, no crime,
So,
right?
because you can also, as a Massachusetts resident, you can grow up to 6 plants per person,
Yes.
up to 12 plants total per household.
Yes.
And then, so if that's too much for you to utilize, you can legally give it to your friends.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or enemies.
Yes.
I guess, if you're really nice. If you're just a
trying to
really
make
nice
Well, I
person.
mean, it
Or like
might
your
make them friends.
parents. Get your parents on board.
Yeah.
The largest population that's come to use of cannabis is the elderly
Yes.
population.
And
Yeah.
for nighttime use.
And for body aches.
That's most of our customers are over 60.
Pain and sleep.
Pain and sleep.
I do have to
That's
most
what
of
I
mine are
hear.
older.
I hear pain and sleep.
Yes.
Sleep mostly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So we
'cause-
have about 20 seconds left in the show. So if there's any last minute thing you want to say.
You should use cannabis versus pain pills.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I agree 100%.
And if anybody gets a chance tomorrow, the Weed Fairy will be at Ethos, which is one of the dispensaries in Fitchburg, right off the highway. Just vending some of our products for our merchandise line that's launching tomorrow. And I believe there's going to be someone there selling artwork too. And I know that all of the dispensaries in Fitchburg are having incredible sales.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Very good. Well, thank you everyone for coming on.
Thanks for having us.